He's not real. This is just a dream. He's not real.
So throughout our time on the internet together, we've seen our fair share of analog horrors, from some truly terrifying pieces of media to some otherworldly horrors that to this day are hard to describe what makes them so scary. However, at least for me, the thing in analog horror that always scares me the most is the involvement of children's media. For some reason, this nostalgic early 2000s take on some beloved shows is always something that makes my skin crawl. For example, one of my favorite pieces of analog horror to this day is this animation called The Boy and the Camera. And if you haven't checked that video out, it's this terrifying analog horror short which revolves around, well, a boy and his camera. The boy goes about his days photographing various items in and outside of his home. The video, however, takes a turn when the boy trips on a rock and breaks his camera. Day turns to night and the boy wishes for his camera to be fixed. The boy is then visited by a fairy who promises that if he comes with him, he can help fix his camera. The boy is obviously hesitant but is eventually persuaded into following the fairy into the night. But when the boy arrives to his destination, he finds that the fairy is not real, and instead who he finds is a man. The final scene in the short shows how when police finally arrived looking for the boy, the only trace they found of him were his legs. Truly a terrifying ending. And it's pretty crazy because I scripted that whole segment just from memory, not having rewatched the animation, which just goes to show how great of a piece of media it is, because the best pieces of media are always the ones that have you thinking about them long after you've watched them. But the reason I bring up this analog horror is because I've been thinking about it for such a long time, and I've even checked in with the creator, but there hasn't been any activity on their end. So when I stumbled upon this channel called Mr. Friend, I was pretty surprised as the art style of the animations are incredibly similar. So for today, we're going to be diving into a few of these animations because just like The Boy and the Camera, these videos are incredibly disturbing. But before we begin, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment bruh, because the engagement really does help me a lot. So if you could do that, that'd be great. Also follow me on Instagram, it's right here. You should do that, definitely. But yeah, let's take a dive into some more disturbing analog horror.
Uncle Charles? What's that? Oh, him? Why, that's Mr. Bobo.
So in this first video titled Bad Boy Oliver, it tells the story about a boy named Oliver who has just turned 8 years old. Marking that milestone, Oliver is now able to ride the bus on his own, and this is something that he's very proud of.
Once upon a time, in the town of Meadowshare, little Oliver was on his way to see his aunt and uncle. Say hello, Oliver. He had just turned 8 years old, and so now that he was a big boy, he was allowed to take the bus alone.
The narrator asks Oliver if he knows the way from here, and Oliver does. But instead of going to school today, Oliver is out to visit his aunt and uncle.
Oliver hadn't seen his aunt and uncle since he was 4, so he was very excited to go and play at their house. Although, he was a little nervous. What if they didn't recognize him anymore?
Upon Oliver's arrival, the couple open their door to their nephew. Their names are Charles and Patty, and after exchanging greetings, Oliver enters the home. But when Oliver is inside, his Uncle Charles welcomes him to the room where he'll be staying. But there is something in the room that makes Oliver incredibly uncomfortable. A doll of what seems to be a rat, but the arms are incredibly long and standing may even be as big as Oliver himself. The uncle brushes Oliver's concerns off by introducing him to the doll. Its name is Mr. Bobo.
Oh, him? Why, that's Mr. Bobo. Your father and I used to adore him when we were children. Why, we could have sworn he had a mind of his own at times. Mr. Bobo?
But even after this introduction to this creepy doll, Oliver just isn't having it. But before he can say anything to his uncle just leaves, leaving Oliver completely alone with the doll. In the next scene, Oliver is in bed, tossing and turning, fighting this inability to get sleep. But he's had enough and begins to look around the room. And to his surprise, the doll is gone, which results in this incredibly eerie segment where the doll begins to watch Oliver sleep.
Where did he go? I'm just imagining things. He's not real.
In the morning, however, the doll is back where Oliver last saw him, on top of the dresser. Still, this overlooming presence of the doll in the room is enough to invoke an incredibly sense of fear inside of the child. Oliver tries to play inside of the room, but is too distracted by the doll, and it's then where Oliver stands his ground and tells the doll that he's had enough of the torment it's brought upon him.
I'm not scared of you, Mr. Bobo. You're just a silly doll, and you're not real.
The doll, however, simply lies there, and Oliver apologizes to Mr. Bobo.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bobo. Please don't be mad. Huh? What's that?
Oliver discovers a hidden camera inside the eyeball of the doll, but before Oliver can process what's happening, his uncle enters the room, telling him that he's seen that he's hurt Mr. Bobo.
Uncle Charles, why is there a camera in Mr. Bobo? If you'd have just played quietly and been a good boy, I wouldn't have to do this.
The video cuts to black, and we're left with a terrifying sight of Oliver being hung with chains by his two arms, Mr. Bobo still watching him and still recording. This video is definitely one that haunts me because it even gets you wondering if these were even Oliver's real family members, as Oliver's name isn't even said by either one of them until that final scene, which would have given them enough time to figure out who this boy who stumbled into their home really is. An Amber Alert also might have been put out for the child as well at this point, so maybe that's how they found out. What's more is that the uncle even states that it's been a long time since they've seen the kid, stating, "Oh, how you've grown." So perhaps Oliver's memory of his family members and where they lived were very hazy, and so he ended up stumbling into the wrong house. Another thing to think about is what the circumstances of this visit were. Also, where are Oliver's parents, and what did the uncle plan on doing after he did this to Oliver? Because if this was his real uncle, wouldn't his parents be asking where their kid is after visiting the uncle? Which is why I do feel like Oliver just simply went into the wrong house, and these people just played into it in an attempt to take the kid. The final thing that I wanted to mention that makes this video that much more disturbing is the question of where this footage was going. Was it being used for personal use? Or perhaps even creepier, was it going to be sold?
Who on earth are you? What on earth are you? The man at the window stayed completely silent.
The next video is called The Man with No Mouth and revolves around a kid who loves using the internet. And from the computer he's using, we can assume this takes place in the 90s, if not the early 2000s. Timothy is seen using his brand new computer to do his math homework, but he's having trouble with one of the problems.
And little Timothy was getting ready to begin his maths homework on his new computer he'd received for his birthday. The only trouble was, Timothy wasn't very good at maths.
Time passes and it ends up getting pretty late, past Timothy's bedtime in fact, but he can't go to sleep because he's still working on this math problem that stumped him. It's then when Timothy hears a noise coming from the back of his house, and so he goes to investigate.
Timothy heard a noise coming from the back garden. What was that? Timothy looked out of the window to see what made that noise. He definitely saw something this time. A thin, naked figure standing in the middle of the garden. It was looking right at little Timothy, and it cocked its head and waved.
In the distance, Timothy sees a naked figure and it begins to wave at Timothy. Timothy, rationally freaked out by this sight, closes his curtains immediately, and so back the kid goes to try and finish his math homework. However, he is soon overcome by his slumber, only to be woken by some knocking at his window. And then this happens.
Huh? Timothy knew he shouldn't go and see it, but he was a curious little chap.
Outside of the boy's window stood the naked figure that was staring at Timothy earlier, but then Timothy begins to communicate with this mouthless being, and it's then when Timothy comes up with the only logical explanation for the presence of this entity. He's here to help him with his math homework. The man with no mouth asks if he can come inside, but thankfully Timothy declines his request, telling him that if he comes back tomorrow, he can help him with more homework, and the being for now leaves. But as the night gets darker, we see Timothy finally getting the rest he deserves. But then the camera pans out, and we can see the man with no mouth watching Timothy as he rests. And then this incredibly disturbing scene plays out, where the man just watches Timothy.
Huh?
The next day, Timothy again is struggling with his math homework and begins searching for his personal cheat code. The man, as promised, comes back and Timothy asks him for help once more, but this time he only agrees to help if the boy lets him inside. But once he makes his way into Timothy's room, he isn't nearly as friendly.
And that was the end of little Timothy. Kevin?
In this next video called Apple Vision Pro, which came out on February 24th, and the reason I bring this up is because the Apple Vision Pro came out on February 2nd, so the turnaround of this project was pretty quick. In the video, it features yet again another kid, this time a boy named Kevin. Kevin opens his front door to be surprised by the new Apple Vision Pro. And honestly, this whole section low-key feels like an Apple Vision Pro ad. Like, the animation is spot spot on to what the Pro does. Regardless, Kevin spends tons of time using his new Apple Vision Pro until his mom interrupts him to tell him that he has to do his homework. But Kevin promises her that he'll get to it later, and the kid continues to engage in his newfound virtual world. But after hours of being on the device, the day gets late and Kevin's mom calls him to dinner, which finally gets Kevin to take off the headset. But when he goes to look for his mother in the kitchen, she's nowhere to be found. The house is empty and Kevin is presumably alone. At least that's what he thinks, because then this happens.
Mum, is that you?
Upon putting the headset back on, things are different, because what Kevin sees from inside the headset is his mother, as she contorts her body right before her child. But when we see the mother's perspective, she's perfectly normal. That's when we see Kevin, out of complete fear, grab a knife from the kitchen, because from within his headset, his mother is this elongated creature set on attacking him. His mother approaches and Kevin defends himself with the kitchenware.
You're not my mum. Stay away from me. Mum.
When Kevin takes off the headset, he bears witness to the brutal atrocity he's committed from the influence of the headset. His mother bleeds out on the floor, with Kevin unable to do anything about it. He just lies there with his late mother. However, before the video ends, the mother wakes up.
Ow, Mum, that hurts. Mum. I got you.
Alright, so in this final video on the channel, it's called Happy School, and what's pretty interesting about this video is that it features the kid from the first episode that we covered, the child kidnapped by his uncle, the boy named Oliver. The video begins as this promotional video for a school called Happy School, claiming that this is the best place to send your child, not only for their education, but for their well-being. But before long, the tape cuts out.
Welcome to the Happy School promotional video for initiation. Happy School is the perfect choice to send your precious children to. All of our classrooms are modern and well equipped.
The video resumes as normal, but then the tape says that the educators quote, "Don't bite when requested," followed by another interruption.
The teachers are fully trained and don't bite when requested.
As the video progresses, things begin to get increasingly strange, as the video says that there's no one in the floorboards and that the children that attend Happy School are fed 8 meals a day, which in itself is just crazy. But when it cuts back to the recording, it looks like someone is exploring this underground facility, and we can assume that this is the alleged Happy School that is now abandoned and forgotten. The person recording then opens a door, delving further inside of this strange place. But when they do, what they find is incredibly strange, because what they find are dozens of Olivers just standing there. And the video just ends there. Now, reflecting on this video just for 1 second, I'm not sure if there's any continuity going on here from the first video that we covered, but from the looks of the basement, it does look pretty similar from the one in the first. But I mean, all basements kind of look like that, so it might just be a coincidence. However, if I were to try and connect the two videos, we can make the guess that perhaps Oliver's fake uncle was involved with the going-ons at Happy School. Happy School being a front for taking children, and so maybe Oliver's fake uncle recorded Oliver with the doll, then sent it over to Happy School to see if they wanted him. And so Oliver was sold to the people at Happy School, and then they began to make clones of him for some strange reason. But yeah, that pretty much does it for this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as well as like the video and comment bruh, because engagement really does help me out a lot. And I do want to give a huge shout out to all of my beautiful channel members and my ultimate tiers, Kareem Ariano and Alejandra from the Tower. If you want early access to videos and to support me, it's only $1.99. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you later. Bye. Love you.